Pokémon Legends Z-A is officially releasing on the 16th of October, and they've randomly dropped a bunch of information about the game, including some hints towards parts of gameplay we've not seen yet. All of these hints are featured on the newly revealed box art, which looks incredible by the way, but we'll get more into those hints in a second. If we look at the full artwork, we can see some Pokémon running around. I don't think there's anything new except maybe Shuppet. I'm not sure we've seen that in a trailer for Z-A yet, but that does seem to confirm that Banette and probably Mega Banette will be making their way into the game as well. We can see some more existing Mega Evolutions like Scizor, Absol, Gardevoir, Lucario, Steelix, and Salamence. We also get a look at Zygarde's core form, which seems to imply it will have an important role in the game. I assume you'll find it somewhat early, and then, you'll collect more cells, but for the most part of the game, it'll function like a 7th Pokemon that you can't use in battle, the exact same way Miraidon and Koraidon filled that same role in Scarlet and Violet. Eventually you find more cells, it becomes more powerful, and near the end of the game it reaches its 100% form, and there's this really climactic battle you do with it. That's what I'm expecting to happen. We also get a look at a few of the new trainer designs. There's 2 Ace trainers on the left and a Rising Star on the right. I wanted to point these out because I think it's really interesting and really clever how these designs take inspiration from X and Y. You can see there's accents, there's lines on the outfits. They're very clearly inspired by the X and Y designs, which I think is really cool. Now I want to turn your attention to a very dark and mysterious rooftop with 2 sinister and shadowy figures standing on top of it. Now these 2 characters are obviously Jet and Vinny. Jet is the CEO of Quasartico Inc., the company that's overseeing the redevelopment of Lumio City, and I believe Vinny is her secretary. Now, as soon as these 2 characters were first revealed, everyone was talking about how they're definitely going to be the twist villains of Pokémon Legends Z-A, and I think this pretty much confirms it. I've never known like a hero type character to, mysteriously shroud themselves in the shadows, but I could definitely be wrong. But Pokémon has never really been known for its subtlety when it comes to villains. I mean, look at Lysander. He's got a bright red suit, he's got a huge mane of hair. It's never really been subtle in Pokemon. And talking about twist villains, we do get to see the arm and hand of the player's rival, which is either Urbane or Tawny, depending on the gender you choose at the beginning of the game. Now, a lot of people are saying it seems very sinister. You can only see their arm and it's completely covered in shadow, so, there are some people speculating they could be some sort of twist villains, or perhaps they could be more sinister, or they could know a lot more than they first let on, but I'm not sure how accurate that's going to be. I think it would be very interesting. It's not a concept that's been tackled a lot in Pokemon, but I also do think that's a reason that it probably won't happen. But who knows? They do have slightly red hair, so maybe they have some sort of connection to Team Flare. Another hint towards gameplay for Legends Z that we've not seen yet comes in the form of yet another mysterious character who's pretty much front and center of the newly revealed box art. Now, you've probably seen tons and tons of people talking about this online. That is actually Emma, a character from Pokemon X and Y's post-game. They have the exact same hair, the same eye color. She's pretty much wearing the Essentia suit, but there's a few added details, and she's wearing a coat very similar to Lucca's. Now, she's 16 years old in Pokemon X and Y, so in Legends Z-A, she's likely around 28. Pokemon have never been creative with time skips. The gaps between Red and Blue and Gold and Silver, as well as Black and White and Black 2 and White 2, are the exact same as the real-life gaps between their releases, 3 years and 2 years respectively. X and Y and Z-A have a 12-year gap between their releases. We can clearly see that technology has developed slightly, but not dramatically in-game, so I think 12 years is a pretty fair assumption. Now, if she is around 28 years old, fun fact, that makes her about 1 year older than Cyrus was in Pokemon Platinum, 3 years older than Steven Stone was in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and around 6 to 8 years older than N in Black 2 and White 2. She didn't really seem that old on the box art, but it's not in the highest quality. We've not seen her in-game model yet. We don't know how she talks, how she acts, so I'd say it's completely up for debate right now. And you may be wondering how this affects gameplay in Pokemon Legends Z-A. Well, keep in mind, at the end of Pokemon X and Y, the detective agency that the Looker owns, the Looker Bureau, is taken over by Emma. And if we head over to the official Pokemon Legends Z-A website, it mentions that the protagonists are tackling a variety of incidents occurring throughout the city. Now, I think this implies that the player will have some sort of interaction with the Looker Bureau and obviously Emma. I think it could potentially be a very pivotal part of the daytime gameplay. Of course, we already know that nighttime gameplay is mainly the Z-A Royale. Also, not to brag or anything, but I did predict that like 3 months ago.
You and the new friends you'll meet tackle all sorts of incidents. So the main story, I think, could be working for the Looker Bureau.
I'm just saying, my theories, my speculation, obviously very reliable, so that I think that's a good reason for you to scroll down and subscribe. There's still a lot of theories that are popping up because of this artwork. A lot of people are focusing on that strange rooftop where Jet and Vinny are standing, but are instead focusing on the unusual shape of the base of that satellite thing. Some people think it looks like Claydol, so maybe it's hinting towards a new Mega Evolution for Claydol. I don't think that's true personally. I think Claydol's a very obscure Pokemon. It's also a Generation 3 Pokemon, and Generation 3 Pokemon already have tons of Mega Evolutions. I think for Mega Evolutions, they're going to want to focus mainly on Generation 5 Pokemon and Generation 6 Pokemon, who really missed out in Pokemon X and Y for like no reason. I've also seen someone suggest it could be Rotom, and I actually do really like this idea, because it could be related to the Rotom phone company. Of course, Lumio City is a very large and very industrial city, so it would make sense for a large company to station their headquarters there. Now, one of the reasons I really like this idea is because I think it works really well thematically, because I think it would hint towards Nemona returning in Pokémon Legends Z-A. I mean, if any character from Scarlet and Violet is going to return, it's gonna be Nemona. She's an incredibly powerful, battle-crazy trainer, so it would make sense she'd hear about a huge tournament taking place in a nearby region and wanting to go over there to really hone her skills. Now, she is the daughter of one of the board members of the Rotom phone company, so that's why she would be present. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, her family are all absent, including her older sister, who is currently in position to take over the company. So it could make sense that she'd want to go visit her family as well, especially considering how it's implied that Nemona and her sister are or were at some point very close. Additionally, family is a very strong theme of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Arven's parents are pivotal characters in the main story. Penny's dad is briefly mentioned in Mochi Mayhem and shows up in the Crown Tundra, and Carmen and Kieran are both related, and their grandparents are seen in the Teal Mask. While Nemona does mention her family in Area Zero, she is the only one of the main rivals whose parents or family are never seen in game. I think it even continues with the Indigo Disc actually, because Lacey is the daughter of Clay and Drayton is the grandson of Drayden. I think that's a very obvious theme they were trying to convey. So Legends Z-A could continue this theme and show us Nemona and how she interacts with her family. I would love to talk more about other trainers that I think could be returning in the Z-A Royale, but there's so much to talk about, I think it should really be its own video. So if you want to see that, definitely scroll down to the comments and let me know. There's a few more details we should probably go over. As I mentioned earlier, the game is releasing on the 16th of October. Digital pre-orders will start on the 5th of June, the same day the Switch 2 releases. The game costs about 50 Great British Pounds, and the Nintendo Switch 2 edition costs 60 Great British Pounds. In US dollars, that is about $60 for the base game and $70 for the Nintendo Switch 2 edition. £50 or $60 is about the same price as Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet when they first released, but the extra $10 or £10 does make the Switch 2 edition one of the most expensive Pokemon games in a long time. It could always be worse. There are some Switch 2 edition games that are going for $80. I think Mario Kart World is going for $80 as well, so, you know, try to look on the bright side, I guess. Finally, there was a Pokemon Presents live stream announced for the 22nd of June. That is a presentation where they show off new updates and trailers for recently released and upcoming Pokemon games. There's a 99% chance we'll see a new trailer for Pokemon Legends Z-A, and there is a very good chance it will feature some very new Mega Evolutions. So if you do not want to miss it, you need to subscribe right now, because I'll be covering all of this as soon as it happens.